towards optimism and moves towards love, for example, in Moonlight, or moves towards hope and strength in Underground Railroad. I think it comes out in Ridgeway subconsciously through his relationship with Homer. Is there not some part of him that is trying to not go back and change his past, but is that love, that kindness, that optimism that he can love anybody, subconsciously coming out in him through this weird relationship with his child?
Or is he doing what a lot of people do? Because you have one black friend or one black association, you think really allows you to be the kind of person who we all see that he is.
I think that
you get a pass because you have one black friend, or he gets a pass because he's so kind to Homer.
Maybe I think he destroyed the one possible black friend or childhood friend that he had, and that in Homer is he trying to correct that. I wonder about that too in life, about some of my best friends are as a way to put a Band-Aid solution on a systemic racism, or a systemic view on sexuality, as another example. I definitely think that subconsciously that's at play.
Last summer, you opened up about your experiences, and you shared a little bit here about your experiences with anxiety. And I wonder, what steps did you take to preserve your own mental health on the set of Underground Railroad with this character that you're playing? Because he does have a heart that's overrun with hate. And so when you have to have that and ingest that on a daily basis, what does that do to your personal psyche?
Well, I realized through reflection, through outside forces, that the way I was handling it was through, between action and cut was one thing, and between cut and the next action, my way of dealing with things is through humor, and not humor to make fun of what we were doing or to lack reverence for what was going on, but just as a release to enjoy my time with Homer, with Chase Dillon, who, by the way, is the greatest prankster, the most bolshy young fellow I've ever met. And at some point, thank God for Barry and his team bringing a person like Kim White in, who was there to counsel, and just the presence of her made everybody feel, even if you didn't have a conversation with Miss White, the presence of her made you feel cared for by the entire production, that Barry wasn't just doggedly trying to collect information to make a show. He was caring for every individual. And Kim at some point put her hand on my shoulder and said, you don't have to always be joking around with Chase, and I have a feeling you might need a bit of time on your own. And that was a particular day when I'd been dragging Tuso along a field for take after take, and Barry would call cut, and I would get, hey, man, Chase, and razzing Chase. Chase was razzing me. And it was impactful, and I'm glad that she did that, because it does leave a residue on you. And violence is, young male actors, I'm not so young anymore, but I remember striving for fight scenes, and I've done a lot of violence on screen, but I realized I've never dragged a woman around, or even the amount of psychological violence that was necessary. And I hadn't really given it any pre-thought. So I think it did have an impact on everyone. But Barry was so eyes and ears about everybody's experience, mine included.
Well, both Barry has said and Tuso said that you were remarkable and wonderful during not just your scenes, but in between scenes. I actually said to Tuso, because she said that there was a lot of humor in between takes, or there was at least trying to release it on the weekends. And I said, so you were kicking it with Ridgeway on the weekends? And she said, little kick in it. So so it wasn't like you all stayed in character the whole time.
I don't think it could have sustained that. And actually, to be honest, I was a little nervous heading into production because I thought, am I going to feel like I have to be separate, or are other people going to keep me separate given what my place is in the show? And there was just a big family atmosphere, and it felt like once cut was called, everybody was running around going, are you okay? Are you okay? Partly because Tuso is so fantastic that everything I ever said or did to her landed so deeply inside of her that I was blurring the lines between, am I watching a person in real pain or am I watching a person servicing the show? And so everyone's going, you okay? Are you okay? I'm okay. Did I hurt you? Are you? And that was beautiful, but it was tough.
Well, I heard that there was a remarkable relationship. Barry said this, that you were so helpful to Chase because this is one of his, first experiences. Why was that so important to you to have that relationship?
I intellectualized it before I met Chase. Like, yes, it's important for me to have a good relationship with him and to be a good figure for him in terms of helping him through the show. In the end, it stopped being an intellectual process, and I just love that kid so much that it was easy and we enjoyed our time together. But, it was also important for me in the beginning. By the way, Chase is so supremely intelligent. His parents are incredible. And I would say to him, look, you understand that in this scene, this is me as a character saying these things. He got it straight away. I would still say it to him, but he fully understood. And I've never seen a child understand the idea of slipping into a character. And the way I know that is because Chase is like, he's all jokes and he's all like, he's, he matches any adult person in banter. And Barry said to him early on, Chase, in this world, you can't even make eye contact with certain men. And if you talk back to them, they would get you in a lot of trouble. So I'd watch Chase put on his little suit and shut down those aspects of his personality. And I was like, that's remarkable. That's the first time I've ever seen a child fully shift into a character mode. And he understood. And it was, I think we learn a lot from children on set, more than we think we're going to learn.
How did you get rid of Ridgway once the role was done?
I find it pretty easy. It's almost like you put on an outfit that's too hot for your skin or something. I think that the moment I would leave set, some days it's like, get this stuff off me. And I was worried, I was practicing my, trying to find a specific dialogue, a specific, accent. And, having some of those words come out of my mouth and having to rehearse that stuff. And I would rehearse on my iPhone. And I'm like, I have to destroy these recordings. They're just like, or I'd be in my car rehearsing lines and think, oh, God, I hope the NSA or someone's not listening into my phone because they're words that I'll never say again or ideas that I'll never have again. But I believe in leaving things on set and going home. I don't believe in taking that stuff home.
Well, you're obviously from Australia, but you seem drawn to shows and movies that depict America's relationship to race. And in Loving, you play the man who took on the U.S.'s, anti-miscegenation laws because he wanted to marry the woman he loved. Who was a black woman. So how do you go from playing Mr. Loving, to playing Ridgway? How did the experiences compare?
I texted with Barry yesterday saying about this very experience, saying what you were asking me to do was to flip the coin. Literally. Because Richard Loving was the opposite and quietly spoken, shy, and Ridgway will not shut up about his supposed schemes and ideas of the world. I was worried, to be honest. I think the reticence to play Ridgway was also infused with how precious and experienced Loving was to me. that for all of the, for experiencing love and the burden that came with that for Richard loving, to then go to the other burden, which is the burden of being actively involved in the business of oppression and hate. But look, I think it's important to explore both ideas on screen, obviously. And I always came back to the idea that if I'm playing the villain in a piece that is so heroic, that I'm participating in the telling of a heroic story. And the more I lean into the character Ridgway, then the greater obstacle I create for Cora, I provide some part of her journey, and I think as an actor, we're there to service the story. So I was trusting Barry and happy I did.
What do you think, what do you want to come out of it when people have finished the final episode?
You can make a historical show and it can be a museum piece, or you can hopefully make a historical piece that has, sadly, its complete lines to what we're living at the moment. I hope people will project their own feelings about current events into this show. Yes, I want people to enjoy the show, and for everything that its creation is, it's identify with the character, but there's so much to pin on this show that you can relate to now, and I hope people find their own ruminations in it, and I hope also that people understand before they come to the show that this isn't just about a 10-episode marathon of torture, that we watch Tuso and Beidou as Cora move through, as Barry said aptly, I think he moving from state to state through different states, which include her exploration of love and her moving towards being able to be called by the name that she wants to be called by, the identifying as who she is as a woman and as a human, rather than just Ridgway trying to drag her back to hell. People talk about binge watching. I feel like this is a show you need to watch and let each episode soak in, knowing that you might go through hell and the next episode you might pivot in, and like popping her head up into a whole new world to discover that is sometimes terrifying and sometimes electrifying in other ways.
Well, this one certainly gives us a tremendous amount to think about, and I've been saying the same thing to everybody, and Barry said the same. You should pace yourself when watching. It's not to be binge watched. I don't know how anybody binge watches it, really.
No. And that's not a negative thing either. I think that, to ruminate on each chapter, because it's also, you've seen it, it's not so typical. It's not a straight line. Barry takes us down alleyways to give us deeper understanding about characters, histories, and Cora's journey down the railroad is a blind series of doors that she opens as she searches for her freedom, and every one of them opens up a crazy Pandora's box that is either good or bad or both. So I think it's good to take each chapter in.
As an actor, director, you wanted to work with this director, Barry. What did you learn from him? What did that experience teach you about yourself?
Well, I'd heard such great things about Barry from actors and people behind the camera, and I hoped to answer that question for myself as to why. I think that man is so filled with so many great ingredients as a filmmaker and as a human being. He pays attention to detail, he pays attention to story, and he really mostly pays attention to people. And he's willing to explore people's psychology no matter what they're made of, or no matter where they're from. And he, as a director, he has a plan. He's a great captain. He knows where he wants to land the ship, but he's happy to go off on little sightseeing tours along the way if his actors provide him with the stuff that is within the scope of, his journey. So he he opens up moments. He's willing to, and he loves artists. He loves actors. He makes everybody feel they're collaborating with him on a story that he's confidently driving.
Well, Joel, thank you so much for giving us all this time. As a new papa, you've given us more time than we deserve. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you. I hope to do it again sometime.